Okay, hello everyone, I'm Victoria Chia, and it's a great honor for me to be here today. Today's topic that I want to share is about FHIR imaging exam, and it's related to the topic that Prof. Daniel just shared in the previous, and I will skip this part. So, in today's sharing, I will divide into 3 parts. I will start from the radiology workflow. So in the most common radiology workflow, it will start from patient. They will come to the hospital and do some registration. And then they will go to the consultation room to consult with the clinician. And then when the clinician diagnose that this patient need to do some image exam, then the clinician will order an image exam in the hospital information system. And next, the exam will be scheduled. And then in the step 5, the patient will arrive in the radiology department, and they will enter the imaging room and undergo the image exam. And so an image will be generated from the modality, and the image is stored in a DICOM format. DICOM is a worldwide standard in medical imaging, so instead of using JPEG or PNG file, the image will be stored in a DICOM files. And next, if the radiology found an abnormality in the image, for example, like this red circle, then they will do some marking, and this is called annotation. And next, the radiologist will describe the annotation, for example, the location, the size of the density of the annotation, and this is called finding. And in the next part, the radiologist will write a diagnostic report for the conclusion, whether the image exam result is normal or abnormal. And then in the step 11, the patient will come back to the consultation room and the clinician will review the report. And finally, the patient will get a image exam report, including the image. And in the last part, based on the international standard, the report is recommended to store in a DICOM structure report format. But most of the hospital currently are using text file or PDF file to store the report. But actually, it is a free text without any format. But the reason why they are using TXT or PDF is because it is more easier to be open in many different systems, and it is also easier to be shared to other people. But actually, the DICOM structure report is a bit difficult to be processed or analyzed. So here we are going to introduce the implementation of FHIR standard for the radiology image exam workflow. So if we see, So if we see the proposed image exam workflow using the FHIR standard, actually we can also use the FHIR standard for the ordering and also for the scheduling. And when the image is generated from the modality, then we will display the image in the image viewer. And then for the marking, annotation, finding, and diagnostic report, we can also execute this in here. So in the next slide, I'm going to focus on this part. And I'm going to use the example of mammography. For example, I will describe the relation of annotation, finding, and report using the FHIR standard first. In here, we are going to use a FHIR observation for annotation and also for the image finding. And then we are going to use the FHIR diagnostic report to store the report content. And these three will be, these three relation is like a three data structure where the report will reference to the finding, and then the finding will reference to the annotation. And they will link to each other by the FHIR resource ID here. So next, we are going to use the mammography example here. For example, when the image is generated from the modality, then we will display it into an image viewer like this view. And then we will draw an annotation, and we will store it in an SVG format here. It describes an ellipse of this circle. And what is SVG? SVG is an XML-based vector image format defined by W3C. It can be used to describe the 2D geographic, 2D graphics, for example, like ellipse or rectangle or line and so on. And using SVG to store the annotation, it is not merged together with the DICOM file, so the SVG can be retrieved back in the report reviewer system. And the next step is we are going to convert the SVG annotation into a base64 format here. And then the base64 format will be bundled into a FHIR observation. And in here, we can see there is a field called component here. And inside a component, there is a value string. So the annotation will be stored on this field. And then we are going to upload, to post it to the FHIR observation, and we will get an ID. For example, the last 3 digits is 297. And then the next step is the radiologist will input the image finding form. And image finding itself, actually, it has many types of form. For example, in mammography, it has architectural distortion, calcification, mass, and so on. And this is the example of mass type report format. So the radiologist will describe the annotation. For example, the location, is it on the left side or right side, and the size, the margin density, and so on. And after the radiologist input, the value will be bundled into a FHIR observation here. And we can see there is a field called derived from, which is used as a reference to the annotation FHIR observation here. You can see it is a 297 ID, which refer to the annotation in the previous slide. And then there is a component field. In here, we are going to store the, for example, the size, the location in the component field. And then we will going to post it into a FHIR server. And for example, the finding FHIR observation ID is 302. And then the next step is we are going to input the diagnostic report. Sorry. For example, here, the category 0 means that the image result is normal, so there is no additional imaging evaluation. And for the category 3, 4, 5, it means that it may be an abnormal result. And then next, it will be bundled into a FHIR diagnostic report here. And in the result field here, it is used to reference to the image finding FHIR observation that we see before, 302 here, the ID. And then the conclusion code, this field will be used to store the conclusion here. And the last step is after post into the FHIR server, we also will retrieve an ID here. And then in the last part, we are going to bundle the annotation, the finding, and the report into a document using the FHIR bundle here. And when the clinician want to review the image and report, actually the workflow will be the opposite of the report creating workflow. So here we will first retrieve the report, and then we will find the related finding here, and last we will find the reference annotation in here. Oh, sorry. Okay, next. So for today's conclusion is actually currently there are many reports that have not been defined to FHIR specification yet. For example, we can see the HL7 official website. In here, we can see the mammography finding, for example. Actually, in here, they have a complete specification. For example, the architectural distortion finding type, they have defined the FHIR specification here. And then for the mass that we introduced before, they also have defined the specification here. But if we see the ultrasound finding in here, sorry. This is the example of ultrasound finding. Actually, there is no example here provided by them. And also for the MRI, they also haven't defined it yet. And when we have a specification document, actually, for example, like the annotation or finding that we introduced before, it will help the people to follow or to take a reference of the specification, and it will be more easier for the healthcare organization or developer to take a reference of it. So we hope that through today's MISAC conference, we can build a team to create a FHIR specification for other report type. Okay, I think that's all for today. Thank you for your time, and I will give it back to the moderator.
Okay, thank you, Victoria. Is there any question? And Victoria can speak both English, Chinese, and the Indonesia. So we also can use Indonesia to ask question. It's no problem. Okay.
Yes, I have one question.
Okay.
Okay. Victoria, can you tell me what the difference between the FHIR imaging exam flow and the DICOM?
FHIR imaging exam flow?
Yes, imaging exam flow between the FHIR and the DICOM.
Oh, the difference is in the reports, in the report specification. For example, in the, I'm so sorry. For example, here in the FHIR standard, we are going to use the annotation, finding, and report, and it can be linked to each other. But using DICOM structure report, it has different format. And as I know, it is a bit hard to be processed and also to be analyzed. Currently, I don't have the DICOM structure report format, but for FHIR, it will be these four FHIR resources used in the example.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Victoria.
From Professor Xiao, maybe is there any additional information?
No.
Okay.
Thank you.
I agree with the Victoria's opinion. FHIR is much more easier to understanding and implementation than DICOM structural report. Okay. Okay. Thank you. And there maybe have another question written in Indonesia. Maybe the Victoria can answer the question in English or in Indonesia. Is both would be okay. 可以吗？那个哀家这边好像线上有问题。
可是这个不是关于这个的问题。
OK。OK.
Hello, I have a question.
Okay.
Yeah, can you guys hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, Professor Lin.
Okay, thank you for your talk. So I have a question. Yeah, exactly about the ID here that you're showing. So I was wondering, like, how are these IDs generated during runtime? So for example, when you're creating a new report, how does the system acquire or generate a new ID? Does the FHIR server tell you that ID, or it's generated locally?
In this example, we use the ID is generated by sequence. So in the file server, it will start from, for example, 001 and then 002. It will have a sequence. But if we want to define the ID by ourselves, actually, we can also do the same thing. Like we want to use a City Hospital TCH and then 001. We actually can customize it, but we gonna use the different method to upload it. If we use the post method, it will create a sequence ID, but if we use a put method, PUT, it will create an ID based on our defined ID.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Professor Lin. The ID is important, and that can be generated in client system or in file server, but the ID should be made unique worldwide. It should be unique. Okay, is there any question? Okay, sorry, then we should move on the next speaker. Okay.